Hello, hello. Happy Friday. Happy Groundhog Day. We are coming at you on LinkedIn Live for the first time, actually, for an encore edition of the Big Rocks 2024 workshop. This was hosted 2 weeks ago, and we had such great feedback that we wanted to do it a second time. So, as we get going, we are streaming on LinkedIn Live and YouTube. This is my first time doing it, and it's one of my big rocks to learn some of this technology. So we're going to get into it a little bit today. One of the biggest things that I feel like has helped me in my efforts is the ability to kind of stay focused and organize where I'm spending my time. And it isn't something that comes naturally to me. So what we're going to go through today is really some tools to help you iron out a strategy behind your goals, and then what are the tactical objectives to get it done. So just some housekeeping for LinkedIn Live. I encourage you to engage in the comments. I have my colleague Ermin is here as well. So if you have a comment or a question, we're going to make sure that we save it towards the end. But if we can address it as we go through it, we will. It's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So my goal is to keep it under like 50 minutes here, but we will see how we will definitely keep it within the hour, but it's a lot to cover. So throw in your comments, throw in your questions. We're here to support you on it. And then we're just going to get going here. Oh, before we do, actually, I have some Groundhog Day trivia. So I have never really paid that much attention to Pennsylvania Phil. I believe that's how you pronounce it. My PA friends will help me there. But one of the things that's interesting is the past 126 years, out of 107 years, Phil has seen his shadow, which signals another 6 weeks of winter. Today, he added number 19 to his belt. He did not see his shadow, which means early spring, which is kind of cool. So if you subscribe to my email, I did call that yesterday. I said, I think he's going to not see a shadow and spring is early. So it's kind of fun to see. All right, let's get going. So if you do not know who I am, my name is Sarah Murray. I'll do a more formal intro here in a minute. But as I mentioned, engage in the chat. This is the first time we're doing it, but I feel excited about it. It's pretty fun. If you do not know me, my name is Sarah Murray. I have been in commercial construction, business development, sales, hospitality, technology for the past 17 years. Which has been a really fulfilling journey. I've worked for 3 different global manufacturers in sales leadership roles, and I've learned a lot about that different types of business models and the different ways that we go to market. And I've been really fortunate to be able to get to some really high profile people because I have the ability to really be authentic in my interactions, develop relationships, but also get to the key decision makers. And a big part of how I'm able to organize myself is what we're going to talk about today. So at the end of 2022, I started a sales consulting business. One of the components of that is sales training. And what we do is we go through identifying what do we need to get to really achieve our final big rock objective. So I'm going to get into a lot of details here. One of the biggest things that I've found, though, and feedback from the different workshops that I've done, feedback from clients, is that this is one of the most impactful things that we cover. So in a full day workshop, this is not the first module, but what we're going to go through today is a module in part of that training. So as we get going, I want to talk about intentional action. If we don't take the time to look at where we're going, we're going to end up spinning our wheels. One thing that has really helped me, and it's something I've learned somewhat recently, is the ability to understand the difference between goals and objectives. So with a goal, goals are really much more broad, and it's kind of the desired end result we want to achieve. So it's more generic, it's more abstract, and they're not always quantifiable or measurable. They just really serve as like this guiding aspiration towards our bigger picture. An objective is really the concrete action items that can be taken to reach that goal. So they're more specific, they're measurable, and there's usually a time frame component to it. So some quick examples here. If I want to improve my public speaking skills, okay, Great goal. We know when we're working towards that goal, right? But more specific objectives would be, all right, that means I'm going to attend a public speaking workshop this month. I'm going to practice with some of my peers and colleagues, or I'm going to raise my hand and volunteer and present at the next quarterly team meeting. Another quick example would be, I want to increase my overall sales goal, my overall sales. Okay, that's a great goal. You know when you're working towards that. But the objectives might be, all right, 15% increase in sales revenue next quarter. I'm going to get 30 new clients in the first half of the year, and then I'm going to implement a CRM system. So we're going to talk about how do we chart out the path to get there. And first, we need to understand where we are to understand where we're going. So when we give into this, this is where, we say the word goals a lot, which is great, but there may be different objectives along the way. But for the purposes of this workshop, we're going to talk about a big rock objective that's measurable, quantifiable, and then what are the paths to get us there. So looking at our big rocks, let's get into the definition of what is a big rock. Big rocks are the most important projects or clients that you need to nurture, grow, execute in order to reach your goal. So when we get into this, they can be existing clients, they could be new clients, they could be prospects that need to be clients, or they could be major projects that fall into this category. So for example, executing this online workshop, that would be considered a major project for me. And so creating the templates, scheduling all the technology, building out the deck, that's a big project. So it's not always sales related. It can really be whatever you need to do in your role to get you to where you need to go to be successful. So when we talk about big rocks, really effective and intentional action requires knowing where you're going. So in this example, I'm going to talk about a sales quota. We are going to also look at, like, maybe if you're not in a sales role, maybe you're in marketing and you have a big website overhaul. That could be a big rock objective. Or if you're in project management, maybe a product launch is a big rock objective. And then we're going to break down those tasks to get there. So in this example, I'm going to go through a sales quota. So let's say I have a $1 million sales quota. If you've heard of this concept of the big rocks, it's basically, the big rocks are the things getting us to our goals. The pebbles are maybe some smaller minutia things that must be done to fulfill our duties. And then the sand is kind of like all that minutia that fills it up. And so if we don't take the time to structure out the different activities and tasks that we're doing, then we won't have the ability to really fill this time appropriately. So we might spend our time incorrectly. And then by the, next thing we know, it's June and we're nowhere near our big rock goal. So I'm going to use a quick example here, and then we have a template, and we're going to go through how you can use that template. So in this example, I'm going to use a $1 million sales target for 2024. This is, a theoretical target here. But I know probably half of that number is going to come from my existing clients. And last year and, January, I onboarded some new clients. So I'm really confident that I can get at least 100K from new clients. But now I have this $400,000 missing piece here. How am I going to get to it? So it might be we grow the we grow the new clients, right? And we get that 400K there. It might be that we grow the existing clients and we prospect within those accounts. And almost often it's a blend of both. So I want to go through, these are, we're going to do this pretty quickly here, but on the screen, we have, you have client A, 250K. That client represents a quarter of our annual goal. Well, you better bet that they are a big rock, and we need to strategize on how we're going to not only maintain that, but grow it early in the year, because we're recording this February 2nd. We have 11 months of sales still to do. But what happens if we don't take the time to organize this is maybe we spend a lot of time with like client F here, who gives us 100K every year. It doesn't mean that client F is not important to us, but we need to look at where are we spending our time, because maybe we take client F out to lunch all the time and he or she doesn't give us business. And so we need to really prioritize where we're spending that time, because if we don't, the big rocks don't fit in that jar. So hopefully that all makes sense. If we look at prioritizing our big rocks, then we start there, fill up our time with that and our goals and our objectives of where we're marching towards. But then we can still make time for our client F, who we care about, of course, but it's not the same amount of intentional effort behind it. And now we have this 400K that we have to go find, right? So, how do we eat an elephant? You guys know this phrase, one bite at a time. So that's really kind of the origin story of the Big Rocks document. So we do have a template for you. My colleague Ermin is going to drop in the comments here the web page that you can download this. You can also scan it on the QR code with your phone. We can post this later. So if you don't get it now and you just want to focus, that's no problem. But that is available on sarahmurray.com/Big Rocks Feb. You'll be able to get this download. We're going to go through how to use this tool. So if you're looking at our different options here, right? This is really, I love this document. It's something I'm really proud of. I use it frequently. My clients use it frequently. But what the biggest takeaway I want you to have from this workshop is that you can use this tool however you want. You can break it down in whatever way works for you. So I'm going to share quite a few different examples to kind of get you thinking and understanding how to use it. But you can take this and work it however works for you. So maybe your big rock is to launch a new product, streamline operations, build a speaking business, increase your social media, write a book, overhaul your website, increase your leadership skills, get more prospects, get more clients. Maybe you have an existing client. I'm using an example for Tesla. Maybe you work with Tesla as a cybersecurity sales professional and you work with their engineering business unit, but you know they're a monster company. You could support their HR teams, their marketing teams, other divisions within your big rock. So how are you going to dissect that client and prospect within that account? A lot of my background has been working with architects and developers. That's a very relationship heavy industry. How am I going to take that developer, that architect, and grow their business and do it with relational intent behind it? So those are just some high level examples. We're going to get into some more specific examples on how to use the template. So there's a lot of ways to break this down. Obviously, the first is identify a big rock. I'm going to share one of mine. So one of my revenue streams that I'm working on building is to add a digital product to my business. I train teams in person, but some individual sellers or teams that don't have a company that invests in sales training, they didn't have a way to work with me. So that was a gap in my business. So that was one of my goals, right? So I put it up on the top of this worksheet. The next thing we have to do is chunk it down by time. And so personally for me, I like to do every quarter. I look at, okay, every quarter, what are the 3 biggest rocks I need to execute to move my business forward? So you can do it weekly. The sheet that we're sending you has, I think, 5 or 6 documents on it. So it's editable. You can do it every week. You can do it every month, whatever works for you. That's an option, but you need to identify what time frame you're using the sheet. And then this is where we get into the specifics. So the first bucket here is the objective. So what specific objective do you need to do? So 2 weeks ago, I ran this workshop on my platform. My goal was to get 100 registrants for that Big Rock workshop. So it's really specific, right? The reason why we want to have targets is that I will share, I think I had 85 people register for that workshop. You think I'm mad about 85 people? Heck no. I'm so excited. But if I didn't have a goal of I want to get 100, I maybe would have had 20 and called it good, right? So it's kind of the old shoot for the moon. If you miss, you land among the stars. I think having a specific goal is one of the biggest pieces. The next biggest piece is having a time piece component to it. And so this workshop I'm mentioning was 2 weeks ago. This is our encore edition Groundhog Day, but I have a specific date that I need to get this done. So before I continue any further, I want to do kind of like a record scratch. We interrupt this broadcast to talk about accountability. I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop that I have a lot of ideas. I get excited a lot. Sometimes I have a hard time focusing. And so for me personally, if you struggle with accountability, this is what works for me. I assign myself external accountability. So some examples here. We obviously have some built-in accountability, right? We have bosses, we have sales goals, we have deadlines, we have things and structures in place to hold us accountable. That's great. But how can we add extra layers of accountability? So the first thing that I do that works really well for me is I assign myself deadlines. So January 19th, that was a hard deadline. We're going live January 19th. Everything needs to be done before then. So you have to reverse engineer what has to happen. But I assign myself deadlines. I'm like, okay, I got to get all this done by this date because I'm hosting a live workshop. I would do this all the time. And before my business launched, I would say, hey, I'm hosting a showroom tour. Hey, I'm hosting a hotel tour. Hey, let's do a virtual webinar series during the pandemic. And we put a date on the calendar because it forces us to work backwards from there. And that was something that worked very well for me. Of course, accountability buddies. I think one of the biggest things that I see clients struggle with, and I have struggled with myself, is prospecting, right? We get so reactive on all of the things that fill our plates that sometimes it's hard to prospect. So if we can take the time to carve out a big rock goal and prospect towards it, that's going to help. One of the biggest things that helps me is having accountability buddies. It's free. Hey, every other Friday, let's meet, go through our goals, go through our results, cheer each other on, and move on. It's kind of like assigning homework to yourself, but like hopefully it's homework that gets us paid, right? A more intense level of that would be coaching and mentorship. When I started my business, there were a lot of things I didn't know how to do. So I would work with coaches. Coaching, if I'm paying someone to help me, you better bet I'm going to show up prepared, ready to work. I don't want to let my coach down. And one of the biggest external accountabilities is, of course, my own money. So I want to make sure I'm getting a return on that investment. And then the fourth example I have that served me really well is I would always announce my goals. So if I was chasing a big rock, I'm chasing an elephant of a client. I want to bring this corporate, enterprise company over the finish line as a brand standard for my former sales product and employers. I would announce it to higher level leadership. I say, hey, I want you to know I'm chasing this project. I'm chasing this client. I want you to be aware because I might need to tap you in for support on closing this deal. So if you tell the big boss that you're doing something, that is a surefire way to light a fire under you to get it done. So I hope that those help you. This is something I have really had to learn starting my own business. That structure doesn't exist, so I had to make it for myself. But this document is something that has also really helped me. So it's great to have end dates because that's going to help you execute. Taking action is great, but if we don't execute, it doesn't mean anything, right? So now we're going to get into the desired outcome. So on your template that you have, this third piece here says, why do it? Right now it says outcome because I didn't update all the slides, but it says, why do it? So why would I host a Big Rock workshop? Well, I want to learn the software behind it because going live on LinkedIn, it's like a command center right now. There's a lot going on. Thank you, Ermin, for helping me. But there's a lot of technology on the back end that I've never done before. So if the best way to learn is by doing, right? I want to build an email list because I have a lot of value. I have a lot of things that I want to share with my community. So this gives me an option to do that. I can record this and use it in the future. I have an affiliate team that I'm working with. I can send them this recording instead of doing it live, right? So even more things, I want to share how I teach and my content. But then also, this gave me a reason to reach out to prospects with this concept of AB, AV. Always be adding value. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but it was a lot easier to reach out to potential clients with something of value. Say, hey, I'm hosting this free webinar. I'd love for you to join. So I want to do another little, interrupt this broadcast to talk about the objective desired outcome. Why are we doing it? Something that has really helped me identify if something is a big rock or not is, can you get a 3 times return on that investment? So ideally, if you get 3 things out of an activity, that's going to be considered a big rock. That's going to be worth your time or your money. So lunch example, let's say you want to take someone to lunch. All right, I'm taking this big rock client to lunch, but I want to ask them to invite 2 other people at the firm so I can expand my network within the account. I know that that person is on the board of directors for an association. Maybe I want to sponsor a future event. That's going to be one of my goals going into that lunch. And then, of course, maybe I get a project out of that meeting or an opportunity for new business. So same with, all right, boss, I want to sponsor this $2,000 golf outing. I'm going to invite these 3 people. I also want to, get photos for our LinkedIn. I want to talk about a specific project, or hey, this person works with this person. I'm going to invite them both to my foursome and golf and build their business. So anything you do, try to think of 3 ways you can get a return on that investment. It doesn't mean if you can't that it's not worth doing, but it just may not be considered a big rock. This is also going to scale your success and maximize your output. All right, so moving on, the last piece here on this template is the how. So, what specific steps are you going to take to do this? So, all right, this was my 2 weeks ago. I needed to create a Zoom webinar. I needed to build a landing page. When people registered, they had to get emails on what to expect. They had to get the template. I had to build out the webinar slides, right? This helps you prioritize which tasks you're going to focus on first for that big rock. So, other things, figure out the software. I have a digital product that I've launched, but that's all in under that big rock umbrella. So I mentioned this comment of ABAV. This stands for always be adding value. One of the, I think, biggest ways that really helps differentiate you and gives you more confidence in any type of activity you're doing is you're thinking, how can I add value to the other person? So I just have that on there. It's on the template. I just wanted to explain a little bit about what that is to remind us how we're adding value. Another quick example for my business is I want to build a public speaking business. Oops, excuse me. I guess I didn't fill out the examples for that. All right. So big rocks under that umbrella might be I need a demo reel. I need a prospect for new events. I do have an upcoming event this month. I'm going to be speaking at the Forbes Travel Guide Summit in Las Vegas. How am I going to use that opportunity to prospect for other things, to network at the event? So looking at this guide, all right, now Forbes Travel Guide is considered a client. So that event at the end of the month is called the Summit. What's my objective? I want to engage a really great workshop. I want to execute an awesome presentation. I have a hard end date because there's an event. But while I'm there, what intentional action am I doing while I'm there? So last night I sent LinkedIn requests to all the other speakers. And there's some really high profile people and I wanted to meet with them. And it was such a natural reason to reach out. I'm going to network while I'm there. I have a podcast. I bet you I can get some amazing podcast guests at that show. That's going to be one of my efforts. I want to understand the Forbes Travel Guide business model a little bit better because maybe there's other departments that I could support and serve. And then, of course, for that particular big rock, I need to build the presentation. I'm doing a handout for it. I would love to get a videographer because then that helps me with the next version of my demo reel. So I hope that these types of examples are kind of getting you to understand how we chunk down these big things and then we just keep moving forward after we execute. So now I'm going to get into a sales example, and this is just kind of a through line for the presentation, but then at the end I have different types of examples. So if you're not in a sales role, I want you to just think about this as we're going through this example, but sit tight because we have some more specific examples towards the end. So this is our jar of business, right? We're chasing this $1,000,000. Now I'm going to identify 3 big rocks for our theoretical example. Client A, who we saw, they give me a 25% of my goal. I have a new client and they're just crushing it. They did 70K last year and we just opened them. So I want to really nurture them because they've only, we were only scratching the surface with them. But I know I have 400K to solve here. So I'm going to give these theoretical names. We got Wally's Widgets and Gidgets Gizmos. And then you can see I documented our 2023 goal and then our 2024 goal because I'm trying to get to that $1 million. So with Wally, I need to grow him by 100K. Gidget, I need to get her 30K more. And then that decreases my goal of finding new business. So now that I've identified our 3 rocks, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly here. But with Wally, all right, his goal is to increase 40% from 250K to 350K. That is a very specific objective, right? We've got numbers, we've got percentages. I have some end dates. This is an annual goal. So I'm going to say, all right, I want him to be at 350K by mid-December because we know things shut down during the holidays. So what am I going to do? Why is this a big rock? Well, I know that I can add additional inventory to their stocking items. I know that they have a whole different residential department I've never talked to. And I believe they have an e-commerce website and my product's not on it. So those are some specific activities I'm going to target. How am I going to do it? Well, I know that the buyer is Tim. I've worked with Tim for a really long time. I just need to carve out the time and introduce him to the new product and get him to stock it. I want to get a presentation on the books with the residential team and introduce them to my product. And then because I'm such good friends with Tim and we've worked together for years, I'm going to ask Tim to introduce me to the e-commerce team. That's what I mean when I say we're prospecting within our own accounts. With Gidget, all right, Gidget, I want to increase her sales 42%. I think she could easily do 100K this year. They hit last year's numbers with only a small percentage of our product line. They don't even know some of the awesome stuff that we have. So I need to set up some trainings with their team. Amy is my gal. I'm going to set up lunch and learns with Amy. I'm going to take the people that have already been selling and ask them to invite their colleagues to a lunch. And then I know that Gidget targets interior designers. She has this beautiful showroom. Maybe we do a joint event where I invite my interior designer clients to Gidget's showroom. And then I'm adding value to Gidget because I'm building her business, right? So start to identify how you're going to chunk down these things and how that's going to contribute to your overall Big Rock objective. And then in prospecting, I'm just going to say we want to open 9 new accounts, 30K average. That seems really doable. I want to maybe prioritize that sooner than later because I want to make sure I can capture as much of the sales year as possible. And then maybe we do a trade show. Maybe I carve out 5 hours a week for prospecting efforts. Maybe I find an accountability buddy to hold me accountable to that. So this tool can be broken down however you want. Maybe instead, Wally was at the top, and all three of these columns are around everything we're doing for Wally. Maybe with those 3 different divisions, they have their own columns. So again, you can use this tool however you want. I'm going to give a couple of more examples here, and then we can open it for Q&A. So another example is maybe you want to maximize your time efficiency. So I mentioned I worked with interior designers and architects. Let's theoretically, let's say I own an architecture firm. Well, I want to maximize some of my time because I notice my team keeps spending time on things that it seems like we can streamline that. So maybe we make templates. Templates and creating processes and sequence of operations, it takes time. It's not something that's fast. So oftentimes we're in this reactive state. How can we carve out time to make this a proactive Big Rock goal? So let's say by the end of Q1, I want to have templates in place for my reoccurring tasks. So my top 3 biggest things are my specification documents, proposals, and these emails we send out on a regular cadence. I'm going to time block 3 hours a week, and I'm going to do 1 a month for the first quarter. And then once it's launched, I'm going to, March 31st or mid-April, I'm going to do a training for the team so we all know how to use the templates. Another thing, maybe we spend a lot of time on team meetings. That can be streamlined. So instead, this is coming from a prior boss that I used to have. Every Tuesday morning, we had a call on the calendar. And anything I needed to talk to him about, I would just put it on our shared calendar invite. And then if something urgent came up, of course I could call him for help, but everything else just saved for that weekly check-in. And we actually did something like this where I would share the results of my efforts for the past week. That helps me hold me accountable with a built-in boss. If you don't have that, this was something that could help you. And then, leverage AI. AI, everyone's talking about it. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. This is one of my goals. I want to understand how AI can help me streamline some of my reoccurring tasks. But it's not something that's just, it takes time, right? It takes time to learn something new. So, all right, I'm going to give myself 6 months. I'm going to get comfortable with the AI tools. I'm going to bookmark ChatGPT on my bookmarks bar. Your actions can be quite small. They don't have to be intense. I want to take an online course. I found one on LinkedIn. It was $15. If anyone wants it, send me a DM and I'll message it to you. I need to just carve out time to take that course. I listen to podcasts. I interview people on my podcast to learn about AI. And then sometimes you outsource and you hire for help. So I think this is the last example we'll go through. Let's say you're a solopreneur or a travel advisor or a real estate agent. You have to go out and build your book of business. Pretty much anyone in a business environment has to go out and build business. So in this example, we're going to say our 3 big rocks are networking. We're going to prioritize networking. Maybe we create a webinar event because we want to add something of value and show that we're an industry expert. And I get a lot of referrals. Maybe I want to build a more formal referral program to help my existing clients make it easier to send me new business. So, all right, networking. I'm going to attend 12 networking events, 1 a month. That's easy. All right. It's going to be something we do monthly. Why am I doing it? Well, I want to expand my network. I want to prospect for new clients. I want to be top of mind because people see me out and about. And you know what? Maybe I join a leadership role at an association I'm a part of. That gives me a reason to reach out to people. And it's not selling them my product. It's saying, hey, I'm planning a panel discussion for this association I'm a part of. I'd love for you to be a guest on the panel, right? That concept of ABAV, always be adding value, find ways to build that into your big rock objectives. And then just other, rounding out this example, Create a webinar event. Why would I do that? Well, I want to be a thought leader in the travel industry, travel advisor industry. So I want to do a webinar on the top mistakes to avoid when you're booking international travel and how to avoid them. And then at my networking events, it's really easy to say, hey, you know what? I'm hosting this webinar March 8th. I would love for you to be a part of it. What's your email? I'll send you the details, right? It gives you an opportunity in your networking efforts. And then, maybe I get a lot of opportunities for referral business, but it's a little, ad hoc. I want to do something more structured. For every referral you send me, you get a $500 credit, if you will. So just some examples here. I'm just going to give you guys a call to action if you want. You have the template. Ermin's dropped it in the chat, but identify the 3 big rocks from now until the end of March and make it work for you. So when I say make it work for you, I have an actual printout of it that I'll do. I had a lot of big rocks this quarter. So I wrote it on a post. I wrote it on a piece of butcher paper, and then I physically go cross off. It's sitting right behind my computer, but it helps me see what I'm working on. I'm fortunate enough to have a wall to hang it on. This presentation was pretty text heavy. So I put in some pictures of the cat. She had no chill when using my butcher paper. So we obviously had to pause and build her a fort. That is the type of adult I'm turning into. But the takeaway is make this work for you. I hope that those examples helped kind of get your wheels turning. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up is I really encourage you to measure the results. And there's a lot of different ways we can peel this apart. But if I think about, okay, I went to that lunch or I invested in that coach and that coach introduced me to this person and this person had me on their podcast where I got this big client. Tracking and looking back at those results help you understand what's worth doing and what's not. So at the beginning, I talked about client A versus client F. If you take the time to measure your results, you really understand where are you spending your time and your money, and is it on the correct activities? Because if you're not getting results from an effort, why would you continue to do it? Whereas if you, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but if you track it, it just kind of helps you realize, yes, at that trade show, we got these leads, we met these people, we closed this deal. That trade show was awesome. We're doing it again. Or, you know what? I didn't get results from that trade show, but maybe I didn't plan correctly. I want to do it again, but this time I'm going to have more of an intentional outcome with specific actions behind it. So it just helps you really align where you're spending your time and money, and also your focus. Are you focusing on the correct big rocks? I think, when I started my business, I was chasing clients that I don't know if there was a market fit. However, I had quite a few inbound things for certain industries. I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity over here. Maybe instead of focusing over here, I pivot and focus over here. So it helps you be a little bit more open to opportunities. And then again, just to kind of bring it back around to this accountability piece, it's going to help you with your internal accountability because you're able to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to this lunch and learn. I'm going to spend $600 on lunch for these 20 people. I'm going to go in with a plan, right? Because I have intentional action. So I'm going to get 3 things out of that lunch and learn. And then that holds me accountable to why I'm doing that particular activity. Same with, of course, networking events, golf outings. It helps you just almost quantify why you're doing that, which helps with, of course, talking to your boss, right? What did you get out of that? What did you get out of that golf event? Oh, we got these 3 projects. Oh, I got to spend the whole day with this VP. We didn't have a great relationship before. Now I'm at the top level. So all of these pieces, if you measure the results, it's also going to help with your external accountability. So that wraps up our workshop. Does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to drop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer. And then if not, we kind of have like a what's next final wrap up here. So I'm not seeing any questions. If you do have questions, of course, my email is sarah@sarahmurray.com. We are on LinkedIn, so you're welcome to send me a note too if you have additional questions. And then just kind of as a what's next, this is again like this is the second time I've hosted this particular workshop, but what I've found from the first one was kind of, all right, this is great. I look forward to incorporating this in my planning process. A lot of people fall into that first bucket. Next person says, this was interesting. Jen doesn't see the template. Jen, if you hit on that web URL, excuse me, oh my goodness, web URL that Ermin posted. Oh, thanks, Jen. You're the best. Thanks for being here. If you hit that web URL that Ermin posted, it's just going to take you to, I think you put in your name and your email, and it will email you the template. And then the template is editable too. So you can print it out and write in it. You can type in it, make it work for you. And then Jen, if you don't see it, I can email it to you later. Kind of okay. So first bucket, people are like, "This is great. I'm gonna try it," and just give yourself some grace too. I go through different. I go through different. Thank you, Joe. I go through different phases of life. Right. Sometimes I'm super focused. Sometimes I'm all over the place. Joe, I owe you something. I have not forgotten about it. I'll get it to you today. But I think that that's one thing that just really helps is give yourself some grace. If you didn't, obviously don't use the tool if it doesn't work for you. But I hope that you had some good takeaways. If you want a little bit more information about how you can use this in a more scalable way or more specific to your role, one of the big things that I mentioned at the top of this broadcast is that I didn't have, when I started my business, an offering for individual folks. So now, 2 weeks ago, I launched a new option for you. So if you want to learn more, okay, Jen, I'll email it to you. If you want to learn more, I'm going to end this broadcast on LinkedIn. Ermin's going to drop in. We have like a 5-minute Zoom. If you want to learn more about it, it's a big product launch for me, which is really exciting. But I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me on LinkedIn Live. Happy Groundhog Day. We are, Phil did not see his shadow, which means we get an early spring, which is awesome. I think I'm excited about an early spring. Thank you so much for joining and have a great rest of your Friday. And we're going to see you over on Zoom.